you, Karen. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Leigh, I was very, very fortunate to be an MC for the the Grit Night. That won't make sense to people, but a night of it was called Grit, and it was about mental health that Mark McManus, who is actually your brother-in-law, put on. Mark is the founder of the Restoration Project, and Mark works a lot with mental health, and he decided that he would put on a night and have a few guest speakers to not to talk about mental health, but also talk about, I guess, to open the door to vulnerability, and so that men can actually feel like they can have a voice and that they are not alone, because there's a lot of men that feel alone, with mental health issues, and it can lead to disastrous effects. So you were one of the speakers, and it was an absolute honour listening to your story. So I had to get you on here, and I'm going to try and relive some of that for my listeners. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Karen. As I said before, it's great to know that it resonated with yourself and some others. So anything I can do in this space to create vulnerability and help people that maybe not even necessarily going through head trauma like me, but just with good decisions are down the mental health line, then it helps me to help others. So
yeah, absolutely. They say that if you want to heal yourself, go and heal others. That's the fastest way to healing yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think one way that may resonate with people is that, and this has happened to me over the last few years while I've been battling this, is when I've been down and struggling. One of the best ways to heal myself in a funny way is that if one of my children gets hurt or is sick or something like that, all of a sudden, or my wife, all of a sudden your pain just doesn't feel real. Like it just sort of goes away a little bit because your focus is on someone else. And I think it's the same with mental health. Yeah, you can be down, but then if you can help someone, then it sort of really helps with your own pain. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that spreads across so many areas of life, not just mental health, like, all sorts of issues, that my life shit, and then I have to help someone else, and suddenly I don't feel the shit anymore. Doesn't mean that it goes away, but it does make you, it also makes you realize how damn valuable you are too. Do you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, nah, 100%, Karen. Yeah.
So let's let's paint the picture here a bit. You are, Mark tells me, and so do many others, that you are one of the absolutely one of the best local footballers the area has ever seen. So that's a fair badge of honour. But you played footy and coached and around Gippsland, but also in 3 states. Played footy for 3 different state leagues, and while that's fantastic, and you did that over 20 years, a lot of the time we look at footballers and we're like, oh, they're tough bastards, this kind of stuff. Geez, they take some knocks and everything else. And then someone gets whacked in the head and then we all go, whoa, that kind of stuff. And then they get up again and then we give them a bit of a cheer. But is that even healthy? Because over that 20 years, I'll read this so I don't get it wrong, but over that 20 years of you playing, you endured more than 40 concussions, including 40, that's 40, that if anyone, that's huge, including a severe incident in the VFL where you were knocked unconscious and suffered a brain bleed. Now, these repeated head injuries have led to you being diagnosed with CTE, and I have to read this because I get it wrong, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And there's quite a lot of, we'll talk about this as we open up the podcast, but there's quite a lot of footballers and who are dealing with this or have suffered with this, and some have even taken their life because of it. And it's quite a serious injury or condition. And it instead of that badge of honor of toughness think we've got to start really questioning what we're doing to people, while we're cheering them on, calling legends from the sidelines. So,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
did foot? I want to open up the bit about CT and ask you what CTE and ask you what it is, and our listeners are going to want to know what it is. Before I do, though, I just want to ask you, what did footy mean to you over that 20 years?
Oh, geez. Football was, yeah, it was far more than something to do or a game to me. It was life and death for, as long as I can remember, really, until probably my kids come along, and then you realise that there's something else. But it gave me my identity. I lived and breathed it. It gave me the opportunity to live a healthy life and make great relationships, and so it gave me so much. But definitely, it. I guess the best way to describe it was who I was. It gave me my identity. Football was my whole life was based around it, and how I could best prepare myself to be the best footballer I could. So yeah, it meant a lot.
And then you can't play now, and nor do you want to play now because you just can't be banging that head around anymore. What happened with when you're talking about your identity and giving up footy and making that choice and knowing that I can't play anymore, like this just isn't going to happen? What does that do to you? Like, what does that mean to you when someone says, or you decide, whatever, when the end of the day comes and that's not your identity anymore?
Yeah, it's something, I still think about and struggle with. I actually wake wake up probably at least, once every fortnight or once every week even, to a dream where I'm still running out and still playing. It's something that mentally I still struggle to let go of, especially maybe while the body, with a brain injury, it's hard because I can still, I'm training for a marathon now. My body still works. I still feel as though I can compete. Um, but obviously there's a something going on there that you just can't feel and touch. So um, I really struggled at first, and I retired because I should and because the doctors told me to. And then I came back, and then I retired again, and then I came back. And that's just because I really struggled to have direction and purpose without it. So I really had to try and find other ways to be driven. And at first, it probably, at the time, I thought it was just depression because I missed football. But obviously, looking back now, it had a fair bit to do with the probable CTE and the head knocks and what that was doing to me. But yeah, it took a long time to adjust, and to be perfectly honest, I still haven't let go of that mentally. It's built in me. It's who I am, and I just have to now find other ways. And I'm really lucky that I've got a great partner in Michelle that understands, I guess, how I tick, even though I don't. And is helping to support me to find ways to be able to use that, like the marathon that she's entered me into a marathon, and that's really given me some drive and competitiveness back that I had from my football. I've got something to strive for, and I guess it's the first time since my diagnosis that I've had that, and I guess I'm slowly realizing now that come July, when this marathon's finished, if I do finish it, that my life now will have to revolve around having something else to strive for, because I now know, because of football, that's how what makes me tick and what makes me work. I have to have something to be able to set a goal for, to try and achieve. Football gave me that, and then there was a period where I had nothing, and now I'm trying to find other ways.
Yeah. When did you fully retire from football?
Yeah, I fully retired when I was told, Karen.
Yeah.
um, in 2019. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I said 17 the other night at that chat, but Michelle reminds me that it was 2019. That was my last concussion that year, and yeah, I owed it to my kids and Michelle to be able to, to not keep doing that to myself. Yeah.
Mm. So that was like 5 years ago. Did you spiral? Like, did you go into a state of depression or become like staying in bed all the time or put on weight? Like
Mm,
what sort of
mm.
what sort of impact did it have to on your well-being?
Yeah, well, yeah, it did. At first, it was a bit of an interesting time in my life. I'd only met Michelle a year or so before that. So our relationship was new, and I, we weren't engaged yet, weren't married yet. So I was, as you do with any new relationship, you want to be the best, the best you can for that. You want to prove to your partner that you're a good person and you make good decisions and things like that. So I guess I had a subconscious goal to, um, not let things go, even though I was sort of struggling with that. I really wanted to live healthy, and I guess it's the more time went on, and the more our relationship became strong, and we got engaged and um, got married. I guess the more comfortable I felt in the relationship, the more I started to realize that I've got some demons here, and I probably need to work on them. So I did spiral out of control, but it was years later because of the new relationship and wanting to, create
Yeah,
a good life for Michelle and show her that, yeah, she can have a good life with me, I guess.
yeah. So when we earlier we talked about CTE, and I won't try and say it again, but it's it basically it's no, you tell us what is CTE. You'll do better than me.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, well, firstly, I'll say with the diagnosis, it's a probable diagnosis. So, my neuro, who's a leading neuro, she in Australia, she's been on 60 Minutes and stuff lately. She does all the any big name sporting person in Australia she deals with. So I'm very lucky to have her. Um, and she's given me a probable diagnosis, although she thinks it's like, she doesn't think it's only, she's just waiting on the law for her to be able to properly diagnose. At the moment, it's still after death.
Yeah.
But with what I've gone through, it's obviously very clear, the scans she showed me, and so that's the first part of it. CTE, I don't know how to pronounce it, that's for sure. But and I'm remembering these things, Karen, sorry, because I'm writing them down as I talk to you so that I don't forget
Yeah.
questions, because that's quite often one of the things I do is start talking and then completely forget what I was meant to be talking about. So
Yeah.
when you ask a question, I'm just scribbling down what you're right, so that I can
That's all right.
make sense of the interview. But CTE, I guess what it is, it's a disease that's incurable. Um, it's a disease from based on repetitive head knocks. Um, Michelle would be much better at explaining it than me, but effectively, it's early onset dementia is what it is really. So I'm not sure how it all exactly works. Michelle's really good at explaining it, but effectively, it's a disease. It's degenerative, and the longer things go on, the worse it gets. The symptoms are headaches, depression, anxiety, tiredness is a big one for me. Um, mood. So mood was a huge one for me. Sort of outbursts out of nowhere. Impulsiveness is a big one. So they're the symptoms I can't really get my head around or remember or explain exactly what's happening with the brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really just early onset dementia, I guess, is what it is.
How do you feel about that? What sort of emotions do you have to battle every day, knowing that that's where you're headed? I know that's a hard question, but
Yeah, I feel like I'm an idiot, really, for putting myself through it. I guess something I haven't really thought of before, but what just came to mind then when you said it is selfishness, I guess. As I said before, football gave me everything I wanted in my life, but what it's sort of given my kids now and my wife is probably a life that I'm 41 now, I think. There you go. I think I'm 41 or 42. Um, so I've effectively taken away years of healthy life from them that I shouldn't have. So there's sadness around that, I guess, that, if dementia is real, and it is, ideally it's 30 or 40 years when I'm, 70 or 80. But in real terms, it's probably 5 or 10 years. So the fact that I could be 50 and, struggling to remember and communicate with my children and wife is pretty hard to comprehend, and that I really struggled with that at first. But I just can't live. And, there was I guess, a time there where when I was really struggling, you, and I did make really poor decisions because I had no drive to be here. So I was, I guess, a point in time where I was either going one way or the other. I was either getting worse, after probably 3 months of just going nowhere, I was either going to get worse or get better, because being in the middle is no good to anyone, and I feel it's more painful. You know what I mean? I may as well either continue making these terrible decisions and not be here, or get better.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what drove me, and to be there for the kids as long as possible, to make good decisions and get healthier, and so the emotions are, oh geez, Karen, they've been in every, they've been every part. Like it's hard to, right now it's quite positive, but still every week provides challenges that I have to work hard to find ways out of it. So it's an ongoing battle, but I am learning tools to be able to try and push through those moments, because the best way I'll describe those moments is what's the word for it? Paralyzing, completely paralyzing.
Yeah.
You just feel as though that's it. You can't get up, you can't function, you can't do anything really, and you've just got to, use tools you're learning, and be patient and try and push through them. Yeah.
Did you, when you were playing footy, was there anyone who said to you at any point, like we're talking about 40 concussions, was there anybody over any of those concussions that at any point that said, Leigh, you can't keep doing this, you've got to wear a helmet, you've had too many knocks to the head? Like, were there anyone trying to drag you out of it before it got to this?
Yeah, there was, Karen. Yeah, there was people that definitely said that to me. The last club that I coached, Wonthaggi, the president there, who gave me a contract to coach their club and play at their club, I remember pulling me up and said, "You're not playing anymore." Now that, unfortunately, in this day and age, I think a lot of clubs and presidents would not go down that path. They would want you to continue to live out your contract and coach and play and deliver what you said you were going to. But one thing I do owe him is that he, football and was completely second, and he pretty much said, no, that's it. He was just one. That was the president of Wonthaggi, Brett Tassari. But there was other people along the way, definitely family. But my response was, I'll be fine. And that's 100% what I thought. I just thought that, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I'll be effectively, the feeling after you get one is you're hungover the next day. So you got headaches and you're tired and you've just got no energy. It effectively feels exactly like you're hungover. So I just thought that, I'll just rest the next day, I'll sleep, and then, be back to normal on the Tuesday for training. And that's effectively where the damage was done. When I would go back to training on the Tuesday and push myself and push the brain and then play again on the weekend, and quite often get another head knock, either at training during the week or the next week in the game. And what I've learnt now is that's actually where a large amount of the damage is done in the recovery period. And and that's what I'm driven to change, because that's something we can. As I said before, I love this game so much, and what it's given me, I want my kids to have those opportunities. But what I won't have is seeing my son or any kid that I can help or control if I'm part of the club, or that I want to make sure these kids get a head knock, make sure there is a clear process that's followed, and that they don't have the, do what I did afterwards, because people are going to get head knocks. And hopefully with what the AFL is introducing, and, we'll continue to evolve in that area, and that people will get them less, but it's still going to be part of a physical game. And I'm not driven to take that away. If we can reduce it, that's great. But it's about what happens when you get one that I'm driven to be a part of. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that later in the interview, what you're doing now. Do you think helmets would prevent that? Like you see a lot of not a lot, actually, not as many as we should, but you see the occasional AFL footballer, wearing a spongy kind of, I don't know what it is, rubbery helmet. Does that help at all prevent the damage from an?
In short, and this is my opinion, no. So there's a few reasons, and I've had feedback from professionals that it doesn't. So I'm sure lots of people, pardon me, have different opinions, but and professionals have different opinions. But from what the information that I've been given from professionals, it can actually even be worse in regards to you've got more weight on your head. So when you get a hit to the head, your brain still bounces. If you've got weight on your head, it can actually make your brain bounce more. So what a helmet's good for is if you've had an operation or you've got a broken jaw or something like that where it's bone damage, then it can reduce the impact of that or stop a hit on a wound or something. But in regards to brain, no. But the other thing that's important to think about, that I wore one before I had that information from professionals for a year, at least a year, more to shut people up, because people were saying you should wear one and we don't want you to play unless you wear one. So I wore one for a year, and what I found is that I became a target. That helmet became a target for people. Get that person with the helmet. That's our way to take him out of the game. If that's where he's vulnerable, then target him. And I found probably more head knocks when I had the helmet. So I understand that the AFL want kids to wear them, and that's fine. I'm not against kids wearing them, but once you've got a mature enough body and you get to sort of 18 or towards senior football, my advice would be to not wear one, but I'm not a professional either. So, yeah.
So what was it then? Like what what were you experiencing? So you were told to quit, and you're like, I don't need to quit, I'm fine, I'm fine. What was that point when you said, shit, I'm not fine? There's something really wrong with was it your brain, your behavior, what was that catalyst that made you go, I need to seek help?
Yeah. Well, why I retired was the last. So the head knocks became far too easy to get concussed. So the last one was simply my head just touching the ground, like there was really nothing in it. And then I went to work on the Monday, and I ended up passing out at work on the Monday 2 days later underneath heavy machinery.
Shit.
And I'd had two young kids at that stage. Um, and then I ended up going to hospital. I had to have 3 months off work, and I spent some time in hospital, a few weeks, and had the brain bleed. And that's where I realised that this is quite serious, but I still didn't understand the long term effects or really care that much about the long term effects. So that was the initial sort of shock of it, that this is, something's not right here. But really, the rest, the major stuff that's really impacted my life and sort of threatened my livelihood, really, has brought me to the worst types of thoughts you can have. Is that's happened sort of in the last 5 years, and that's where I've realised that the longevity of what I've done to myself, and then the diagnosis really is to get that confirmation. I guess nobody wants to hear that your brain doesn't work, but um, given what I'd gone through for years previous, it was almost relief when they told me, because I thought, well, that's why I felt like that. And then, from there we sort of had a plan with what to do with, okay, well, if this is what's going on, how do we best manage me and my family, and what's the best way forward? So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How did it, like getting that diagnosis and you saying, oh, it's a bit of a relief? What was it like for Michelle, your relationship for Michelle? Like what was it? What is it, a shock, or was she just like, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, we're going to do this? Or
Yeah. Oh, look, what Michelle's had to go through is, that's a real driving factor for both of us. She's said to me several times about how lonely it is for her, and Michelle's really driven she had nowhere to turn, no one to speak to. She didn't know what to do. She was just lost for a while there, and she felt really, really lonely. So she's really driven to make sure there's help for partners, and that's something we'll continue to work on. But look, I couldn't have asked for a better partner to be able to handle that situation. She was the one that booked the appointments, got me in. She was, she didn't flinch a bit once we got the diagnosis. She set the plan straight away that this is what we'll do, and I think she was also relieved in a way that we can now get help. This is what it is, and now we can get help, because for a long time it was really hard on our relationship, because to the point where it nearly broke us apart, because for someone like her, she's thinking that I'm upset at her because of all these emotions that are popping up in my head, that I don't love her, and that these actions are a result of her. So once we understood that this is a disease and this is what it does, she just it was relief for her because she knew that it wasn't her at all. It was what I was going through. So yeah, very lucky to have that support. Being a male, I probably wouldn't have even made the appointment, which is terrible. But I'm just so relieved that we did, and just really lucky, Karen, that there's part of me that's angry at myself for what I've done to myself, but I've been talking to families over the last 6 months about people that have their children that have committed suicide to it, and I almost feel bad telling them that I'm feeling better, because when they tell me that their son had would say these things, that why am I like this and there's no way out, and I know exactly how they felt, and I got lucky with help. But for a long time there, I just thought no one understood, no one, and that there was no way out of this.
Yeah.
So there is ways out of it. It's never going to go away, but there is help, and not enough people know where to seek it, because no disrespect to GPs, they don't know enough about it. No one that I went to knew enough about it, and I got pumped full of antidepressants and told I've got depression, and it never helped me. The depression medication, and then I felt worse because you've got depression. Here's your medication, doesn't help, and then you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
So then you feel even worse. Yeah, I can't remember where the question started now, but yeah, hopefully that provides some context.
What I'm hearing from you too is and when you spoke, the other week when I was emceeing, it was kind of a very emotion-filled night, and there was everyone's sort of holding themselves together. And you were kind of the catalyst that burst into tears and broke down. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. That was actually the best thing that could have happened, because suddenly you opened up the floodgates for everybody in that room, to be like, fuck, it's okay. It's okay for men to ask for help, and it's okay for men to express their emotions and to say, to feel isolated. And when you're talking just before about talking to families and you feel really bad, because some of them have lost their kids because of this condition. But it's not just the condition; it's the fact that men don't feel like our society is fucked, as far as I'm concerned, and men don't feel that it's okay to ask for help. Men don't feel that it's okay to cry. Men don't feel that they feel like they're going to be branded as weak if they're not, the ultra tough guy. And by the way, the podcast I just did last week, I actually talked about, it's called Real Men Cry, and it was actually based on that night. But I think that real men do cry, and real men do ask for help, and real men do, do say, I'm sad and everything else. But society does not encourage that, and society encourages really shitful stuff for men.
No, I agree, Karen. Look, I guess for me, initially there was a lot of shame in I didn't want this to be an excuse for anything, so I struggled to talk about it because I thought that people would think it's just an excuse for poor decisions, or a way of getting out of whatever I've gone through in my life. Like if I've made any bad decision, or I've forgotten something, that I can just now go, well, I've got CTE. So I really struggled for a long time to talk about this disease at all. I guess the crying bit is, natural feelings are natural feelings. I've probably been okay with that over a large portion of my life, even with my coaching. I am a pretty emotional person, and I do let it out when I need to. I guess the other night when speaking about, or when I broke down in tears, it was to do with the suicide plan. So I had a suicide plan that, and I guess why I got so upset on the night is I was trying to explain what I was feeling at the time was trapped. So I wanted to commit suicide. I didn't want to be here. I had a plan, but I love my wife and my kids too much. So then I felt trapped, and I held resentment against my kids and my wife. And that caused me to, yeah, it's emotional. It's emotional
Yeah.
now to think about.
Me too. I'm crying. Yeah.
Because I, it caused a lot of my anger outbursts were towards them, were subconsciously, I guess, being angry that I couldn't. So yeah, it was just a terrible, feeling that I had. But for them too, like, what have they done wrong? Nothing. So I guess on the crying thing, over the last few years, I probably, like, we got married last year, and I cried at the wedding, and
It's
and
good.
then and then my son came the other night, which he's 14. My other two younger ones didn't, but we weren't going to bring the 14-year-old. And then he said, "Dad, I want to come." And then Michelle spoke to him about what was going to be said on the night, and we discussed it. And we thought, well, my eldest is a pretty responsible kid. So we spoke to him a bit about it, and he ended up coming. And obviously, I cried on the night. And Jet's he's never been a crier. He's never cried. I've never seen him cry in his first sort of 13 years of his life. But over the last year, he's probably seen me cry a bit with what I'm going through. And he cried the other night. He cried a few months ago. Something happened where he cried. And then he cried on the way to the event when Michelle was speaking to him about what I'd gone through and what I'm going to be speaking about. And that's a proud thing to see him cry. Like I could tell he'd never thought that he could, but he is like me, and he is a big sook. And and it's just great to see him feel as though he can. And that's getting back to what you said before, that's such an important part of being a man or a male, is to, crying's a good thing. It hurts when you do, but it lets it out, and you feel as though it's like going for a run. Afterwards you just feel so much better about yourself. So yeah, it was a good moment to see him crying. Yeah.
And he was thoroughly enthralled in your story. I was watching him and just thinking, you must be so proud of your dad. You really must be. So.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, I definitely did look at him, because I wouldn't have got any words out. But yeah, it's nice to hear. Yeah.
I don't worry. We were all in tears. I was a blubbering mess. I couldn't even read out the next person because I was bloody sooking too much.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's nice to know that, as I said before, I was worried about how things would come across. And one thing, when Mark first asked me, my initial response was, it's not really for me. I'm not sure how, what I think about my journey at the moment, and whether it is one of resilience and things like that. But I guess the more I realised it's not so much about me, it's how we can help. And it's really nice to know that it's resonated with some people, and that's what it's all about. Yeah, be able to help people's lives. And I've seen some messages come through after the night, and it's so rewarding. Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy when you see people going home from it thinking, some change that they want to make in their life. Like, it's such a rewarding, and you must go through it all the time, Karen, with the work you do. It's such a rewarding feeling to know some people have listened and taken on board, and now want to help put things in their life. Yeah.
Well, like I said on the night, if one person leaves here,
Yeah.
making different decisions, then the whole night has been successful, and you don't know, and you'll never know. And this is the same things that I experience. I'll never know, but well, some people do come up and say stuff to you years later, but you may have saved, and I have no doubt you will have saved somebody's life. Simply because you opened a door, on that night. And I
Yeah.
know that seems big to you, but it happens. Like, people's lives are saved when other people share their story, and it's
Mm.
massive. But
Yeah.
speak, go on.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
I
going to
was going to say, yeah, it's funny not funny, but it's, I guess I hadn't thought of that. And I don't know how to explain the feeling. If that's a real thing that's happened, then, I'd do it as many times as I could,
yeah,
to be able to help. Yeah. Whether it helps or not, I guess the hope that it would give me that it may
yeah,
is, as I said before, it helps me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's that hope and that intent. You can't change what anyone else does, but if that you intend to save a life, you intend to change a life, it makes you feel a lot more worthy. But you just said, I'll do it a million more times, or 100. I can't remember how many more times you said, but that is exactly what you're going to do and what you are doing, because you're now on a mission, to help implement protocols, in regional leagues at least, to help prevent CTE. And you just said before we went on air, that your son said something to you that was a massive catalyst for you to go, that's it, I'm going to go and do it. So tell us about that, and tell us what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess before, I decided to make a change, um, it was actually not to me. My son said something to, some family friends in Nearham South, that he wanted to hurt his head on the football field just like his dad did. And then they didn't really say anything to Stevie about it, but then they told me about it, and I was a bit shocked, and obviously, and just made me feel sick straight
Mm.
away that, he's seen it as a badge of honor, I guess, that, and it made me assess how I used to think of it, and it's exactly how I used to feel. Um, Getting a hit to the head was something I was really, really proud to do. It was my way of showing my mates that I loved them. And I felt that it gave us the edge over other teams because, we had a brotherhood, because, we would do whatever it took, to be a strong team, and to we always thought that, the team, that are the best team will always beat a talented team. It's always the camaraderie that'll get you over the line. So that was my way. I didn't ask people to do it, but I just wanted to always show that this is how much I care for you. And then, I guess, hearing what he said, I instantly thought, this has to change. This can't be like this, because this is just going to continue forever. It's the best way to have head trauma and possible CTE is to have that mindset. It's the absolute best way to have lifelong issues. There couldn't be a better recipe for it.
Mm.
So that resonated, and I thought that this has to change. And now, I guess that's my number one goal, to be able to show kids that this is what it can do to you. This is what it's doing to me. And if you don't listen to the protocols and you don't take this seriously, then this is what your life will look like when you get older. And encourage clubs and teammates to, when someone gets a head knock, that the bravest thing to do is to put your hand up and say, oh, I'm a little bit dizzy here, and I'm not sure. I may have been concussed, I may not have, but I'm unsure. And that's what courage and bravery is, not getting hit. You know, you can still go hard at the ball, and sometimes if you get a hit, that's okay, but you have to be able to put your hand up and say, now I'm not okay.
Yeah.
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 And so, are you going to? I know you've only started this journey, you know, and I love to get people at the start of their journey and start amplifying them out and getting them out there and that. So, are you wanting to talk to schools and clubs and all that kind of stuff, as many as you can, or how are you doing that or going to do that?
Yeah. So the start was, I've got to be, I guess, conscious of one thing I'm learning, Karen, is to something that I've been terrible at my whole life is to try and put myself first. Otherwise, I can't
Yeah.
be a good dad and partner. So I'm really trying to be mindful of what these talks and stuff do to me.
Yep.
The talk we did last week, what I built up in my head beforehand was not healthy.
Yeah.
And I think obviously, like, I felt fine on the night and great afterwards, but and I think the more times I'll do it, the better it'll get. But I've just got to be mindful that it can't be at my own detriment.
Yep.
To be able to help. I want to help people. That's what it's in there.
Yeah.
But if it's bringing me down, I've just got to be careful.
Yeah.
So I'm in that phase where I'm just tippy toeing. And the other night, you know, I guess I've decided since that I definitely want to do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm just in the middle of creating a brochure at the moment to send to the football leagues that will pass on to their clubs.
Yeah.
That will just be a flyer about a presentation where they can get in contact and book me to come to their club and have a talk to people about my journey and I guess how I think you can help, where you can seek help, what players need to look for, what partners can look for.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that I definitely am starting to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just being a bit careful with how much. I just need to slowly grow into it. And I'm certain that the more comfortable I feel, the more and more help I'll be able to give. But yeah, just trying to have that balance.
I agree with you. I remember Mark starting the restoration project when, you know, and I remember talking to him and saying that you've got to take care of yourself because you're just going to be
Yeah.
exhausted. And he's still trying to balance that out. But when you just said then about signs that the partners can look for, what are some signs? Because there's people listening to this that they've got partners or boys, you know, playing footy, or even girls playing footy, because there's girls out there, I'm sure they're getting bloody knocked in the head as well. What sort of signs should people notice that are warning signs for too much?
Yeah, look, I think it's probably the best. You know, as we said before, a lot of males will, until it's an issue, they'll brush it off. I definitely did that. But a partner is probably the best way to get on top of things a little bit earlier than that, and see the signs of it, because you know, if you do it yourself, you probably don't notice it as much. So the things to look for, I guess, are as I said before, the main things are like the player that's, or the person that's actually dealing with it will notice the headaches and things like that. But what Michelle noticed for me was memory. So I was asking the same questions and you know, just forgetting where things are, and just, I guess, just general memory. The mood outbursts, and with that, the big thing for me, and it nearly cost me my job, was I always felt I was being attacked. So I would have a simple work email come through that would ask me a question as to why I did that way, and I would respond back like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean I did it that way?" And Then I'd show Michelle, and Michelle would be like, "What are you talking? Like, they're just asking you a question."
Mm.
And I then have to go and apologise. And look, that happened for 6 months probably. I still deal with it a little bit now, but because I'm mindful of what's gone on in the past, I really now question every email I send.
Yeah.
Or if I get one I'm unsure about, I ask Michelle, is this,
Yeah.
is this rude, or is it my way of thinking?
Yeah.
So the mood, the memory, are two big ones for partners to see, because you probably don't notice, well, you definitely don't notice the memory issue yourself.
Yeah.
The mood, you probably don't notice that either. Like, you just think that it's always been there, so you don't notice anything's changed.
Yeah.
And then the other things are probably things you notice yourself. So headaches, tiredness. Like,
Yeah.
look, I don't function after 6 or 7 o'clock. Like, I'm awake trying to do things, but I get grumpy easy. I just don't function. Whatever I do, if I'm working, I've got to go back the next day and fix it.
Mm.
So being aware of that, they're things that I know and feel, but
Yeah.
the other two main ones are things for the partner to look for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned impulsiveness as well before, so that's
Mm.
probably another that they might notice. I believe you bought a car impulsively, and
Yeah, I did. And it's funny because, well, one, I forgot about it until Michelle brought it up. Just, I think it was on the way to that night, maybe. Um, um, so yeah, the impulsiveness. I did buy a new car. I come home with it, and at the time, it was not even a big deal. Like, I remember bringing that home, thinking Michelle was going to be excited. Like, I genuinely thought I'm bringing her home a gift. It was a brand new car, 60 grand or something. I went in there to look at one, and I drove it out. And she looked at me like, and I remember being frustrated at her, like, I've just brought you a gift. Like, what do you mean you're upset? So yeah, that's an obvious one that, it's obviously a completely different mindset that I was in, and
yeah.
impulsiveness is a big one. So you want instant things, instant success, instant feelings. It's probably on the back of, I guess I'm lucky in a way. I was speaking to Mark about Mark's journey, about addiction.
Yeah.
And I think CTE, or mental health in general, how it can lead to addiction is just so easy, because when I'm paralyzed as such, when I've got that deep dark feeling, I couldn't care less what I was given to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
I just need to feel better.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm lucky in a way that it didn't turn to addiction. I definitely did drink far too much alcohol, ate too much food, and went and seen doctors about as much prescription medication I could get to numb my feelings. But I never got to the point, never got bad enough, I guess. I sort of got on top of it with Michelle's help early, but I could 100% see how it would be so easy to it spiral into addiction.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard from other stories, is that it generally does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can easily imagine how that would happen. Easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and part of what you said before about stopping you going down that path and keeping you on track was the exercise, and having something to look forward to. And you are running that marathon on the Gold Coast soon, and you're fundraising for the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which you're a board member for. So when is that? How long is it for? All that?
Yes. So It's the day before I turn. There you go. I'm 41, so
right.
it's the day before I turn 42. I'm running 42 kilometres. So,
Yep.
so it's on the 14th of July,
Yep.
and it's in Cairns. So Michelle's picked if it's not tough enough to run a marathon, I've got to run it in Cairns humidity. So that'll be great. But yeah, it is in honour of Nick Loudon, who's a Traralgon local, who I've become pretty close with his family now through this, and Shane Tuck, who I played some football with down at Richmond or Coburg, Richmond Reserves. I'll be running in honour of them. I'll have their names or numbers on me, and I'll somehow cross that line. I did a 23k run last week, and I remember I pulled up and I thought there's no possible way I can get 42. Like, I was cooked. So I've still got a fair bit of work to do, but it's given me real. Like, I think I would be definitely feeling better about myself now, regardless, because of the help, the support, and the medication that I'm on. But the exercise has been the real clincher for me. And I was saying it the other night in our talk. I think that, and I hope people didn't think that you have to go and run a marathon to live for mental health. You don't. But I think the important part of it is that you have to have an outlet, and you have to get out in fresh air and be active somehow. So whether it's hiking or walking or jogging or running or an Ironman, it's completely irrelevant. If you can get out for half an hour, if your body's not at the point where you can jog, then you get out and walk. I think I said it on the night. You might remember or remind me if I did, that after I went to a mental health hospital for 3 weeks or something, and I was, 20 kilo heavier, I knew I wanted to do something, and I had to learn to walk again. So I had to go out and walk for 2 kilometres, and then the next day walk for 2.5 kilometres. And I didn't start jogging for 3 or 4 weeks. And then, I would jog for 500 metres and then walk for a kilometre.
Yeah.
And I would just slowly, I had to take baby steps, and I had to learn to walk again. So, and then last week, this was only a year ago, last week I ran 23 kilometres in one run, and in a few months I'm going to run 42. So I think I hope people didn't think that they have to go and run a marathon, but I hope people did think that they have to be able to get out and put one step in front of the other. They have to. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. Some days I don't want to bloody exercise. Sometimes I just get out of bed and think, oh, yuck.
Yeah.
But we walk every morning for a couple of kilometres, and we ride bikes and we dance, and the difference that it makes to you is huge. But there's so many days I don't want to do it. But it makes such a big difference. But
Karen, and what I'll say to that is that's really important too, I feel. And I think, once again, I said it on the night. I know I had it on my notes, but I can't remember what came out and what didn't. Is that it's okay to not sometimes. So if you miss a walk, or you end up having a drink or two more than what you should, or you eat a bad meal, or you miss a run, or you make a poor decision, it's okay, and life allows for it.
Yeah.
But to the next day to then be down in the dumps about it and go, I shouldn't have done that, and then doing it again, that's what we need to fix. So it's okay to miss something, but then just get back to it. Find it again the next day.
And just do anything, even if you think I should do 2Ks, but I can only do 500 metres, just do your bloody 500 metres. It's
100 metres, 100% agree. Yeah.
Because the self-punishment is actually more harmful to us than, anything else. But Leigh, I absolutely love this. How can, I know I don't want, you don't need to be inundated with people, but how can people connect with you if they're listening to it and go, God, I'd love him to come out to, I don't know, Nilma North Footy Club and have a chat. How will people find you?
Yeah, sure. Nah, and I'm very much open to people reaching out and love to help. You know, if people reach out and I'm in a position where I just need a few extra weeks to get on top of things and then
Yeah.
I can commit to it, I still want people to reach out, and I want to help however I can. So the best way to reach out, I guess, is either my phone number or my email or our Facebook, which is Leigh and Michelle McDonald.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll leave it at that so that you've got a
yeah,
little bit of control.
yeah,
My thoughts are, and I'll put a link to your Facebook page because at least I
yeah,
know that, and I'm just trying to protect you a little here. Is that Michelle
yeah,
can help you um,
yeah, yeah,
answer messages if you're
yeah,
feeling, because the last thing I want to do is what's happened to Mark is that he often has way more than he will ever admit. Hundreds of people reach out to him
yeah,
for help,
yeah,
which I completely understand why they are. But it also is way too difficult for Mark to have the
yeah,
mental space to answer everybody. And I
yeah,
also want to make sure that you spend as much quality time as you can with your family and have the healing time as well as doing this. So
yeah. Thanks.
let me put the Facebook page link there for you so
Yeah,
that
perfect. That's how most people have been reaching out. So that's,
yeah,
and we've been able to help a few people. And Michelle's talking to partners, and I've been talking to the person that thinks they're going through it or are going through it. Sorry, yeah.
yeah,
Whether you got CTE or not, you don't need a diagnosis to know how you feel. Yeah. Someone is going to see my neuro. There's a guy who I know through football circles who's going. I've booked him or introduced him to my neuro in Sydney, and he's got an appointment in the next few weeks. And he was a little bit worried, I think, about whether he's got CTE or not. And my advice was that it's completely irrelevant. Like, your
mm,
feelings are your feelings. So you don't need to know you've got CTE, or
yeah,
you don't need to know that you've had a million head knocks. I know one of the people that committed suicide to CTE, his results have come back and he was diagnosed. He did have CTE. He had one bad head knock. So
oh,
you don't
wow.
need
Okay.
several, or a whole history of 40 concussions to have symptoms. You know how you feel.
Yeah,
And if you're struggling, then reach out, whether it's CTE or not. Yeah, I hopefully have some tools, but I'm not a doctor. But we can definitely help push
yeah,
it to the right people that can help.
yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing this journey with me. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a shitty one. But I think if you're making the best of your life because you've got the tools and strategies to do that, that's fantastic. And if you're doing stuff to help other people, hopefully prevent it more so than support them in the aftermath of it, I think that's truly admirable. And it is what it is, and it sucks. But as you said, you just got to do what's right, do what's best, and try and help people where possible. So really appreciate the work you're doing.
No, thank you, Karen. I love your energy and love what you're doing too.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it feels great to talk to you about it. And it, yeah, definitely helps to be able to talk through it at times as well. So no, I really appreciate the support, Karen.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Well, I hope it's not the last time we talk, Lee.
No,
And
it won't be. Let's
I'm
keep in
always
touch.
around. So for you,
Yeah.
so know that. Yeah.
Thanks
Well,
heaps, Karen.
no worries. All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
All right, mate. We'll talk
See you.
soon.
Bye
All right,
bye.
bye.
Ta-da.